Hey, and I think I am live now, so I'm sorry I didn't announce this live today. I knew I was gonna do it, but I didn't know when because I've been really busy. So apologies for that, guys. But of course, it's Friday, so Fiber Friday needs to happen. And today, I really want to talk about something that I am kind of starting to get in the groove on, but I know it's really hard for people in the chronic illness community, and particularly those of us that have an illness such as fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or just something that generally drains your well your energy, which is rest and how we allocate rest to our routine. Now, first of all, I really wanted to explain that when we talk about rest, we don't really just talk about sleeping or having a nap, and that we also need to consider rest not just from a physical point of view, but from a mental point of view and from an emotional point of view. So it gets quite complicated trying to understand when you need rest, when you have to consider all of those things at once, which I think is the reason why we struggle, right? Because ordinarily in our society, we think of rest as our sleep or our break at work or in school or things like that. We don't think about it as a conscious action that we need to, do to function. It's just something that happens. But when you have a chronic illness, it's very important that you actually treat it as just another activity that you need to schedule throughout your day. And it does have a major impact, and it causes such a massive difference. So this is really the reason why I wanted to talk about it. Now there's many ways you can do this, but obviously the most important part is really knowing yourself, knowing your patterns, your cycles, and that's not always a very easy thing to do. uh, Particularly if you're still trying to come to terms with your chronic illness and you're trying to sort of figure out what works for you. It will take some time. And if you're like me and you're stubborn and you're used to being very active and you don't like, essentially having to say no to doing things, organizing rest is going to be a very big challenge, because to people like me, just doing nothing feels like a waste of time. And unfortunately, we kind of have to realize that it's not a waste of time at all. It's kind of like when you put your phone on a super saving mode so that you have extra battery to do that one thing that you need to do when you're outside of the house. It's literally like that, and it's so important. So I'll give you some practical examples that apply to me, or that I know from my time working in healthcare, and that I know a lot of support workers and nurses actually try to implement into routines. So of course we have pacing, right? The issue is that a lot of people struggle with pacing very quickly. They don't manage to master it, and if you don't understand the purpose of pacing and taking things slow and sort of seeing how things go, or you have a routine that just doesn't allow for it very well, what can happen is that it will make you very frustrated because you will not see the results that you want very quickly, and you will just ditch it and sort of loop around in a cycle of doom and self-neglect, which is not very nice. But honestly, I can't emphasize the importance of pacing and sort of taking each activity as it comes. Now, as part of pacing and everything else, we also have spoon theory. The better we come to grasp with spoon theory, the better we can prepare ourselves for rest. And I know maybe this sounds very logical, but when you are, trying to think of all of the things that a person with a chronic illness does on an everyday, is between, managing your time, managing your meds, managing your life, the air that you breathe, like everything, it can be quite exhausting to just actually quantify everything that happens. But I actually have found that a way that I do that actually really helps me sort of see how spoon theory works and how much my own energy goes is if at the end of the week or at the beginning of the week, I just write down like everything I have to do, whether it's through the week or for every individual day, whatever way you want to do it. Normally, what I do is I write down these activities that are going to be either that are fixed and I know I have to do, and therefore they are a priority, or things that I want to do. And I write them down. And then I start thinking, and if you can have maybe a visual aid, it will be much easier. For example, if you have like Lego blocks or actual physical spoons, though you would need many, it becomes much easier to actually assimilate this idea. But if you write them down, and it's literally a matter of writing them down and thinking, even if I wasn't a person with a chronic illness, right? If you put yourself in that mind frame, even if I wasn't a person with a chronic illness, how hard would this activity be to do? For example, climbing Mount Everest, this is a big exaggeration, right? But climbing Mount Everest would be really hard for any human being, let alone a person with a chronic illness. So you would know that maybe if you have, say, 15 spoons, and you can give yourself a random number of spoons based on maybe, I don't know, your previous experience or a number that you're trying to work with, it's likely that climbing Mount Everest would take not just those 15 spoons, but a lot more. So if you have an activity like that in your list, then you already know the rest of them are probably gonna suffer. So you can then prioritize and decide, okay, well, this activity is the one that's really going to drain me, is the one that's really going to require a lot of demand from me. So work the other activities around it. Make sure that that day, that's the only thing you have to do within reason. Start making this sort of priority scale so that then you can understand how much it requires from you. And honestly, if you think about it from the point of view of not someone like you, in the sense of not someone who has a chronic illness or chronic fatigue, but how much would this take from an ordinary human being, it really helps, because it puts you in that time frame of, this is not just costly for me because of my circumstances, like this would be costly for anyone. So it will remove some of that guilt that we sometimes have around rest. And it will also empower you because it will make you feel, normal, even if it's for a moment. But it will also give you a much better picture of the reality of events. Because if you already know something is going to be hard, or it would be hard for anyone, then you know it's going to be twice as hard for you, or maybe just harder for you, and you can prepare for it. Now, if you're having problems visualizing this, or really figuring out how much energy everything takes out from you, honestly, the best thing you can do is speak with someone who either deals with you on a day-to-day basis, or that knows you very well, or at least knows you in relation to those activities that you have to do, and they can tell you, oh no, you totally can do this, or no, from experience I can tell this definitely drains you, something like that. So then you can use that external, knowledge to inform your own and improve as time goes by. So if you can combine pacing with spoon theory and use something like this to sort of try and help you understand when you need that rest and not, then that would be great. If you can't do that, then you're going to have to get a bit hardcore and actually use props and prompts around this to really help you schedule rest in. Like I said, that can be really difficult to do to begin with, particularly if you really don't want to accept, or if you're having a hard time accepting that you need to stop. And I'm speaking from a personal perspective here. But it does help. So what I do sometimes when I know that a week is particularly demanding and I have many things, and maybe I know that I don't have spoons for everything, is I pick a day, either for my convenience or completely random, and I make sure that that day literally doesn't have anything in it. Like, that is a rest day. And with a rest day, I mean that other than living in my pajamas and my blankets and eating food, if I don't do anything else, like, everything else is optional. Apart from breathing, everything else is optional. And it literally comes down to forcing you to be in a state where you are not spending. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the first day will be hell. You will literally be running around like a headless chicken thinking, oh my God, this is driving me nuts. I mean, you can still watch TV, read a book, things that you would perhaps do with your free time that don't require a huge exhaustion level. Something that you could be doing, on a break from work or something like that, something that is very minimal. But even if it requires you just turning everything off and just sitting there peacefully, staring out of the window or sitting in your garden or in the park, whatever, literally, this is good for you. Because you simply don't know when you wake up in the morning when you're going to have the energy and when you don't. But if you've actively chosen to take a day out to just bring everything down and rebalance, you are actually helping your brain understand that this is a moment that it can really utilize to recover. And if you start doing that regularly and you get into that routine, you will see how you stop yo-yoing and you don't get so scared that you will run out of juice halfway through the week or halfway through the day, because you've already started creating this routine of rest. As much as it will drive you crazy to begin with, it will genuinely help. It does require a lot of self-conviction and a lot of self-discipline, because it's so very tempting to be like, well, I'm not doing anything today, I'm gonna go food shopping, and then you'll be knackered. Or I'm gonna clean the entire house, and then, well, we lost the entire battle. But it does genuinely help if you are rigid like that and you structure it and just block out a whole day and start with one day and just block it out and be like, today is literally, kind of like when we were in lockdown and we couldn't do anything anyway, like just a Netflix day and that's it. If you need to think about it in such black and white terms, it will help. If you can't afford to do it with a whole day, or because of your condition you need rest that happens more often, then honestly just have a diary and a set of alarms and do the same thing, but throughout the day, and break it down into smaller chunks. So when I worked in healthcare, we used to have a lot of clients that had chronic fatigue, which obviously I related to a lot, and I learned a lot from their support workers, because their support workers had essentially to be human diaries. Now, many of us cannot afford to have a human diary walking around, but we all have a smartphone in this day and age, and you can get that smartphone programmed to tell you literally everything. So if that smartphone is telling you when to take your medicine, for example, or when your appointment with the doctor is, it can also tell you when to stop. And again, you can try with maybe a couple of hours in the middle of the day. And those hours are literally just 2 hours where you don't do anything, like I said, other than just sitting down and chilling, meditating, reading a book, breathing some air. That's it. But it's very important that you keep it on a regular basis. So that you try and establish this routine. I know it's hard to maintain. I know it's gonna be a big challenge, but honestly, once we start doing that, we start feeling empowered, particularly as we start seeing small progress, and it is so much better for our health overall, because we avoid the yo-yoing, and that yo-yoing is really what is dangerous for us, guys. I've spoken about yo-yoing before, but essentially what happens when you yo-yo is that because you don't know when you're going to have a good day or a bad day, when you feel good, you do too much. You exert yourself beyond belief, and therefore you're almost guaranteed to have a bad day afterwards, because your body, your mind, your emotions, they've just gone over the board, and therefore it's telling you, no, that was too much, we're not doing that again. And that's how we go from good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. And even if it's not, from day to day, but it could be good week, good month, bad month. You see what I mean? By making sure that we incorporate these rest sessions, we are genuinely helping ourselves to stop that yo-yoing, or at least have some control over that yo-yoing. And that honestly gives us quality of life. Now, I'm not suggesting this is going to be a miracle cure for everybody or anything like that. That's not what I'm here to tell you. These videos that I do are to give you honest advice from my personal experience and from what the research says. But it will genuinely help. Even if it's just to make your days more bearable, your weeks more bearable, or if nothing else, for you to be able to manage your activities better. And that's really it's those small victories that keep us going day to day. So don't underestimate them. Don't, think that just because those 2 hours of rest a day that you consciously did at a specific time every single day allowed you to maybe have an extra day out with your friends, or an extra talk with someone on the phone, or an extra game of something that you like. Do not underestimate them, because honestly, they are a lifesaver. But like I said, it will be hard and it will be challenging. So to summarize, you need to organize some rest. You have several techniques. I've mentioned a few, like pacing, spoon theory, doing lists, setting up alarms, or organizing specific rest days or rest hours. There are many, many more. Those are just some that I've tried myself and that I know that work, at least for me or people with my condition. But there is many more out there. So do also some research. Like I always say, do what's best for you and make sure that whatever you decide to go forward actually fits within your life and your needs, which is very important. So just try it. Honestly, just try it. And don't try it just once, because like I said, on the first go or the second go, you're not going to see the results. You need to at least keep this routine for a little bit and you will start seeing the benefit. And that's all for today. Thank you everyone that joined. Hi. I've just seen you. Sorry, my Instagram thing just froze. But yeah, thank you so much for joining today. Thank you so much for following this Fibro Friday videos along. And as usual, guys, if you have any questions about fibromyalgia, chronic illness, or any of the topics that I cover on these videos, just drop me a message and I'll always be very, very happy to talk about them. And that's it. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.